The Bounty Hunger is part of Karina Bartow's Undefeated detective series, which follows deaf detective Minka Avery and her family. Griffin and Robin have been standout secondary characters throughout the series. Catch up further on their antics, check out Undercover Baby Moon, available at all major online retailers. For further information on Karina and her books, visit karinabartaw.com. Welcome to Mysteries to Die For. I am TG Wolff, and I'm here with Jack, my piano player and producer. This is a podcast where we combine storytelling with original music to put you at the heart of a mystery. All of our stories are structured to challenge you to beat the detective to the solution. Jack and I perform these live, front to back, no breaks, no fakes, no retakes. The rules for law and order create the boundaries for civil coexistence, and ideally, the backdrops for individuals, families, and companies to grow and thrive. Breaking these rules puts civil order at risk. And while murder is the big daddy of crimes, codified ordinances across municipal divisions, counties, states, and countries show the nearly endless ways there are to create mayhem. This season, we put our detective skills to the test with murderless crimes. This is season 8, Anything But Murder. And this is episode 14, where intellectual property theft is the featured crime. This is The Bounty Hunger by Karina Bartaw. All right, Jack, so what kind of instrument are we going to use for property theft?
Well, to be totally truthful with you, I was thinking just a solid piano, you know?
I love a solid piano. It's so
I do
beautiful.
too. But we
Even
can
when it's on an organ or on a
on a
keyboard.
keyboard.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not an organ.
I love a piano on an organ.
I don't love an organ.
You don't like organs?
No.
I think a live organ is a lot better though. I'll admit, recorded organ, you lose a lot of like the ambiance and the fullness of that room. But like, especially at Shannon's church, my wife's church, they got a phenomenal organ player, and he plays I don't know if it's the actual name of the song called a toccata, or because they always say it's his toccata. I don't really know how that part works, but he plays that every Easter. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. So I'm thinking we can do this here. Dance piano.
Dance piano?
Yeah. I don't really know what makes it dancey.
Oh, dance.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got a little bit of vibe to it.
It's got a stronger attack.
That's how you know Jack's taking music classes.
Yeah.
Stronger attack?
I use big words. Actually, I don't think I've used the word attack until I got into audio engineering, because they use attack a lot there, because it's like the impact of the audio wave. Yeah. I'm going to shut up now, and we're going to play some music.
That was interesting. We learned something, and we're only like a couple minutes into the podcast.
Who knows what we've learned?
A Dinner to Remember. Griffin Garretts moseyed out to his minivan with the belongings he acquired during his 3 months with the Orlando Police Department. Knowing that it would be a temporary position, he hadn't intended to amass such a stash. Between forgetting to take his travel mugs and other routine items home, as well as stockpiling goodies his wife wouldn't let him have at home, he collected a decent-sized box full. On his way back to the precinct, he met up with Minka Avery, the detective who he replaced while she was on maternity leave. With the two having become good friends since they met on a cruise ship last year, they greeted each other with a hug. "Welcome back, little mama," he told her. "How's little Griffin doing?" Minka chuckled over his standing joke that she and her husband Wes named their baby boy after him. "Peyton is doing great. I'm so glad I didn't have to worry about things here with my partner in cases in such capable hands." "You bet," he replied. "I'm happy to re-enter retirement, though. Janine and I are starting with a special dinner at Courrier de Souvenirs to celebrate." "Isn't that the place owned by Pascal Roux?" Minka questioned. "Doesn't he shoot his reality cooking competition there?" Griffin answered in the affirmative. We both love the final crust. Janine claims she enjoys seeing how they make the dishes, but I think she relishes the drama. Doesn't bother me. It's a lot more appetizing than those Bigfoot series she's hooked on otherwise.
You just missed that beautiful pun, she said. He relishes? Oh my gosh, you glossed over it like it wasn't the greatest thing she's ever written. My gosh.
Minka wished him a good time as they made their way to her desk, now bare of his personal effects. He turned in his interim badge to the station's captain, Gus Channing, who reminded him that they could always use a consultant if he and Janine decided to permanently relocate to Orlando. Appreciating the compliment, he sauntered out of the captain's office, where nearby officers applauded him. He returned to the desk he used during his tenure, with Cale approaching him with a handshake. "It's been a pleasure to partner up with you, Griff," Cale expressed. "The privilege is mine, man," Griffin replied. The men slapped each other on the back in a masculine hug, after which Minka handed him the framed portrait of him and his wife taken on the cruise that he'd neglected to tuck into the box. He joked, "You'd be solving my murder if I left that behind. Thank you." "There you go again, accusing me of criminal intent," Janine retorted from behind, surprising them all. The four snickered, and Janine hugged Minka and Cale. She asked them both about their new additions to the family, with Cale and his wife recently having adopted a baby boy from Thailand. Having agreed to pick Janine up at the rented condo after work, Griffin questioned her about her surprise appearance. "Were you shopping in the area or something?" "No, I just took an Uber so we didn't have to zigzag across town," Janine informed him. "Yeah, she wants to get there before the place closes in 4 hours. Cale teased him more than once about his sensible driving. The Garretts said their goodbyes and set off for the upscale restaurant. Beside him, Janine bubbled with excitement, commenting, "I haven't decided what I'm going to get. I rewatched some episodes of The Final Crust, but everything looks so tasty." "Well, that's what I plan to get," Griffin stated. "What?" Janine wondered. "Everything," he exclaimed. She slapped him playfully on the arm before continuing, "I'd like to find out when Pascal Roux's cookbook comes out. Then I can make his recipes at home. Rumor has it he's including his top secret French apple tart in it." "Well, maybe he should share the one made by that contestant, Yasmin, instead," Griffin remarked. "The judges gave her version a better score than his last season." "Awkward," Janine murmured. They arrived at Career de Souvenirs and followed the signs to park behind the eatery. The couple climbed out of the vehicle and strode toward the sidewalk, following a woman in a black hat. A commotion in the opposite direction made them halt their steps. The back door swung open and a man staggered out, yelping in pain. It took Griffin a moment to recognize the chef, whose television-ready makeup was replaced by scrapes across his face, and his perfectly styled hair was now covered in blood. Griffin and Janine rushed over to Pascal Roux as he cried, "Go after them!" "Who, sir?" Griffin questioned. "The thief who stole my apple tart recipe." Sniffing out a thief. The distraught chef fell to the ground, and Griffin knelt down with him. "What happened, Chef Roux?" He didn't answer Griffin right away. More concerned with the employees who had raced out to accompany him, he began pointing down the adjacent alley, directing him in his thick French accent. "They went that way! Catch them!" Griffin reached for his detective's badge, but his hand held nothing to latch onto. Nonetheless, he told the victim, "I work with the police department and I can help. Please, tell me what happened." "I can hardly remember myself," Roux replied. "I was having a meeting with my lawyer, and he stepped out to make a call. I had some paperwork to fill out in the meantime, but as I looked down at it, somebody in a hood attacked me with a meat tenderizer." "I just called 911, Janine reported. "They're sending the police in an ambulance." "I thought you were the police," Roux countered. "I'm off duty, but I can still help you." Griffin kept his explanation simple. "Did you have a confrontation with anybody recently that may have been a catalyst to this?" Roux tisked, saying, "When you have a high-pressure career like mine, Quarrels are just part of your day, Detective. Griffin could attest to that, having seen the chef's fiery temper on the show. Still, he queried, what convinces you that this was about the tart recipe? Like I said, the thief took it, he reminded Griffin. I had my drawer open to complete my paperwork, and the thief snatched it when I was still in shock from the blows to my head. So the person knew where you kept it, Griffin stated. Rue nodded, adding, and it's normally locked away. I only show it to my highest profile cooks for training purposes. Janine took a turn in the interview. How would somebody know you would have it open at that exact moment? My staff knew about the meeting. Perhaps the thief did too and figured I would have the door open, Rue speculated. Maybe they even saw him leave my office and decide to strike then. Griffin raised an eyebrow, asking, Are you implying that one of your own employees may have done this? I am not in the condition to imply anything, Detective. I leave such deductions to you, he retorted. Several more workers and patrons emerged from the building as the ones who darted for the thief returned to the scene. One of them relayed, We split up in different directions, but none of us saw anybody suspicious. They probably took their hat off to blend into the crowd, Rue said. I thought the thief wore a hood, Griffin verified. Yes, I meant that he could have stripped off his jacket, Rue clarified. Please excuse my memory lapses in light of my trauma. The questioning concluded when sirens of an ambulance and a squad car rang through the area in tandem. A couple of patrolmen Griffin knew only in passing took control of the vicinity, clearing the bystanders from the path blocking the EMTs. Seconds later, the medics barreled over with the gurney, with one crouching down to talk to Rue and test him for a concussion. Griffin shuffled out of the way so they could better tend to him. While they treated his wounds, a pair of Griffin's fellow detectives arrived, but he wasn't comforted by their presence. Paul Remington and Omar Stevens didn't have a good impression with him due to their lack of motivation and thoroughness. Aware of a couple of their gaffes, Griffin come close to writing them up, but he refrained because of his interim role. Regardless, he swallowed his contempt and hoped to set them on the right course. He approached them and greeted, Evening, guys. Thought my days with crime scenes were through, but here we are. My wife and I arrived for dinner right as Chef Rue tried to catch up to his attacker. Did you spot anyone fleeing? Stins inquired. Griffin shook his head. I guess we just missed them. A few guys ran in the direction Rue indicated, but they didn't track down the perp. At least there are cameras to give us an assist, Remington commented. Though Griffin couldn't dispute the value of the digital watchman, he cringed. Based on his history with the colleagues and Remington's tone, he interpreted it as a hopeful remark that they wouldn't have to do much digging into the case. Even so, he simply told them, the thief was wearing a hood, so it remains to be seen if the cameras captured anything conclusive. The partners grimaced before the man in a suit rounded the corner of the restaurant and cried, What is going on with my client? Are you Mr. Rue's lawyer? Griffin asked. Edwin McAvey handed over his card, replying, I left the room to take a phone call, and the next thing I know, sirens are blaring. Is he going to be okay? Well, I expect so, Griffin said. Somebody assaulted him while you were away and stole his recipe for the apple tart. As his attorney, you could probably point us toward anyone who fosters ill will against him or has designs on that particular recipe. Well, he does have several legal cases that are ongoing, which is my reason for being here, McAvoy admitted. But to uphold my oath of confidentiality, I can't divulge specific parties or matters. Were there any other plaintiffs involved in your meeting? Stevens questioned. No, this was just a pre-trial meeting between us, McAvoy explained. If you excuse me, I'd better check on my client. Griffin observed him race away, keeping a tight grip on a manila envelope, and climb into the ambulance as Rue was loaded in on the gurney. He had to wonder what kind of legal trouble Rue was embroiled in, and how much a sweet dessert could evolve into something so sour. Unsavory pairings. Remington and Stevens declined to take a formal statement from Griffin and Janine at Crier de Souvenirs, being more interested in talking to the staff and diners who were in the building at the time of the attack. With the evening still young, the Garretts decided to proceed with their plans to have dinner out, but had to change the location, given Crier de Souvenirs had to shut down because of the crime. Still hoping to squeeze in a visit there before departing home to Newport News in a few weeks, they opted to go to a more affordable place, choosing an Italian bistro a couple blocks away. Seated near the alcove where the waitstaff processed payments, they couldn't help but overhear the various conversations exchanged between coworkers. The employees seemed to get along well, most of them in a chatty mood. Griffin and Janine did their best to tune out the idle chatter while they waited for their lasagna and her eggplant parmesan, but Griffin's radar went off when one of the waitresses brought up Rue's attack. "Rumor has it the assailant made off with the recipe for his prized apple tart," the woman said. "Wonder if they took it to his ex's new restaurant," another waitress replied. "I read she's suing him for rights to it, claiming it was her family's dish." Griffin and Janine locked eyes, both interested in that tidbit. After the ladies vacated the area, he asked his wife, "Didn't you say he was going to include the tart recipe in his cookbook?" "The promo I read online teased it as a possibility," she informed him. "Why would anyone steal it now if he's about to share it with the world anyhow?" Griffin pondered out loud. "Maybe it was about sending a message," Janine suggested. Griffin acknowledged her point and dropped the subject for the duration of their dinner. Still, he mulled over the bombshell about the ex, considering whether or not her suit against Roe would be a valid motive. It didn't take him long to pose in it, given she, of all people, shouldn't need the recipe if it had belonged to her family. Plus, having it in her possession didn't secure her rights to use it. On the other hand, maybe she wanted to make trouble for her ex and send a message, like Janine supposed. Regardless, he concluded this was one of the legal battles Rue's attorney referenced. With his curiosity piqued, Griffin did some research when they retreated to their condo. He dug up several articles about Mr. and Mrs. Rue's divorce, which began about 2 years ago. The divorce settlement itself was complete, with Joelle Rue awarded half of her former husband's earnings during their 18-year union. With regard to her stake in the restaurant she helped propel to fame, however, she was stripped of it. Her legal team even fought for her rights to the recipe, but being unable to prove her claim of having it originated in her family, her request was denied. The dust seemed to settle for a while, until she opened her own restaurant that offered her a tart that was all too similar to Crier de Souvenirs' signature dessert, and that compelled Rue to file an infringement suit against her. In his browsing, Griffin also dug up a second alleged dispute involving the apple tart. Since it had yet to go to court, the reports weren't as credible as those regarding the divorce ordeal. According to sources, though, Rue's long-awaited cookbook was delayed because he changed his mind and withdrew the tart recipe from the collection he'd agreed to serve up. After months of trying to negotiate with him, the publisher finally enlisted the law's help, but used pseudonyms to avoid the public's attention. In bed during his research, Janine listened to his summary over breakfast. Once he finished, she joked, "And I thought you were protective of your treats." Griffin gave a mocking laugh before he declared, "We need to go to the station and give Remington and Stevens our statements." "Do you really think that's necessary?" she asked. "All we saw was Rue limp out the door, and we already told them that." "Trust me, these clowns need repetition for effect," he replied. Her grin indicated she knew he clamored for some control of the investigation, but she didn't call him out. Rather, she ate the rest of her omelet and was dressed to leave before him, as usual. They made the half-hour journey to the precinct together, and he pulled into the parking lot just minutes after he would have if he'd been working. Minka and Cale noticed him first, with Cale remarking, "I heard your fancy night out roped you back into crime fighting." Janine rolled her eyes, replying, "I don't know why we even bothered to try our hand at luxury. Our crew's ended up with a dangerous criminal on board, and now this. At least it keeps drawing you to us guys. We're glad you're feeling that way, Minka said. Remington and Stevens are running late, if you're here to meet with them, but you're welcome to wait around until they show up. Seconds later, the station's door opened, but Remington and Stevens didn't enter. Rather, it was Minka's bounty hunter brother, Robin, bringing in his latest score to turn him over to the police. Griffin had met Robin a couple of times, both at the precinct and through Minka. After handing off his target, Robin strode over. It takes quite an incentive to get you up this early, Minka stated. He's my night project, Robin explained. He evaded you guys by sneaking into an underground poker game. I don't understand how your officers missed that, considered he's wanted for illegal gambling. I wanted to haul him in before I start hunting down that famous recipe. Why are you going after Rue's attacker? Minka inquired. We don't have a reward out. But the chef does, Robin proclaimed. 80 grand to whoever finds the thief.
I gotta stop talking without my mic on. My bad.
So is it making you hungry?
It's making me a little hungry.
I think we want some apple
I
tarts.
didn't have breakfast. This is a bad choice.
I am like tasting a sweet apple tart.
And the room still smells like cinnamon.
Yeah, my tea this morning is spiced orange with cinnamon.
So now the whole office smells like Christmas.
I don't think it tastes like Christmas. The
No.
orange kind of un-Christmases it. But
Orange
you can't
is
smell
like-
that.
Like tangerine is like a Christmas thing.
I know, but it doesn't smell like Christmas. Pine does.
You're crazy.
The tardy detectives. The detectives' mouth hung agape when they learned of Rue's promised reward. It reinforced how precious the tart was to the man, and even Griffin couldn't figure out that level of devotion. It seemed to mean more to him than his cookbook sales, integrity, and even his marriage. How far would he go for this dessert? As the detectives discussed their bafflement, Remington and Stevens finally shuffled into the precinct. Cale and Minka looped them in about the bounty, but they appeared apathetic to it. Griffin concluded that they were grateful to have other investigators on the thief's trail. I assuming he's recovering well to be in such general spirits, Cale said. Yes, his doctor doesn't suspect any brain damage, but they're running tests and kept him in the hospital overnight to be safe, Remington said. Stevens glanced at Griffin, as if just noticing him, and asked, What are you doing here? Well, my wife and I came to give you our formal statements, Griffin told him. Remington flipped open his notebook and responded, You were approaching the restaurant right when Rue emerged from the kitchen door and rushed over to check on him, right? Janine shrugged her shoulders with a frown. Undeterred, Griffin reported, According to my GPS, we arrived at 5:53 p.m. for your records. We also landed a lead at the restaurant where we were able to have dinner. Griffin proceeded to recap what they had heard about the ex's dispute and his findings from his research. He further shared the allegation of Rue's trouble with the publishing company. Through it all, Remington and Stevens remained stone-faced. At last, Remington spoke. We're still working on getting the surveillance footage. If that fails us, we'll get CSU to comb for prints on the drawer that Rue had open. Griffin didn't show his frustration over their strategy to let technology do the legwork, but he seethed inside. Once the lazy pair meandered to their shared desk, Cale and Minka grimaced. Having stepped away to get his reward for the gambler processed, Robin returned to the group. Well, I'm off to fry a thief, he said. Minka giggled, telling him, No offense to anyone, but this reminds me of a SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Wait until I tell Kayla that her uncle is basically after Plankton to recover Krabby Patty formula. Having no children, Griffin had only seen the cartoon once when he was visiting his great-nephews, but he had the general awareness of the characters. Meanwhile, Robin took the comparison as quite a compliment, replying, "Good thing Rue isn't as cheap as Mr. Krabs." They all exchanged their goodbyes, and Griffin and Janine followed Robin outside. As they walked along, Griffin couldn't stop ruminating over Remington and Steele's indifference. A plan materialized in his mind, but he didn't reckon Janine would be all too thrilled about it. Even Kel and Minka would probably question his judgment if they caught wind of the notion. Nonetheless, he couldn't dismiss it, and his legs hastened their pace to catch up to Robin. Once side by side, he asked the bounty hunter, "How serious are you about finding this guy?" "Well, 80 grand is on the line, not to mention the pride of my niece," Robin remarked. "I have a few pointers I'd like to offer you if you're willing to hear me out," Griffin related. "Thanks, dude, but I'm not one to collaborate and share my earnings with anybody," Robin refused. "Oh, I'm not interested in the bounty, unless the chef would fork over a lifetime supply of free tarts," Griffin promised. "I just want to see justice carried out." "Fair enough," Robin stated. "What do you propose?" Puzzled, Janine joined them, raising her brow in anticipation of his answer. He told her, "Why don't you take the car back to the condo? I'll ride with Robin to a couple places I'd like to check out. We should be finished around lunchtime." "Uh-huh," his doubtful wife responded. "Have you ever known me to skip a meal?" Griffin inquired with a grin. Following the baguette crumbs. Griffin hopped into Robin's 1992 Ford Ranger and instantly regretted his plan. The truck's floor was littered with pop cans and fast food containers. As he attempted to settle into the cracked leather seat, his shoe landed in something gooey and brown. Esteeming good hygiene, he had to seal his jaw in an attempt not to yelp. After he semi-collected himself, he requested, "Can I use a napkin? I stepped in something." "Oh, sure. That's probably the chocolate pudding that fell off the dash yesterday," Robin said. Griffin shook his head, but remained focused on the case. Robin told him where to find Rue's statement about the attack and the promise of the reward. Griffin read it over, noting Rue again changed the description of his assailant. He claimed the person wore a ski mask, not a hood or a hat. Griffin couldn't help but wonder if his injuries were really severe enough to cause such inconsistencies in his recollection. The guys agreed they would start their investigation at Crier de Souvenirs. Griffin didn't expect it to be open, but he hoped to give Robin some insight into the scene, as well as refresh his own memory about the surroundings. To their surprise, the parking faces in front of the restaurant were full, and about half of the lot behind the building held vehicles. With the van right behind the door where Rue had wandered out, they weren't able to scour the spot like they intended. Used to proper protocol, Griffin couldn't believe the lead detectives would allow all of this traffic. As they trekked closer, a man with a headset cut off their path, commanding them, "You fellas can't come in here right now. The restaurant is closed and we're filming today." "Really? After what happened yesterday?" Griffin questioned. "They weren't going to open the place anyway, so we figured it was good timing," the man reasoned. "Are you the producer?" After the man nodded, Griffin continued, "Did you consult the police department before you set this up?" "Of course. The detectives in charge gave us the thumbs up on the condition that we keep Chef Rue's office off limits," the producer claimed. "What's it to you, for that matter?" Robin jumped in effortlessly, even pulling out a police badge. "We're assisting with the investigation and plan to collect evidence this morning." The big shot, whose lanyard read Miles Dunbar, didn't appear to be swayed, saying, "I'm sorry, but your superior should have informed us. With all of our equipment set up and our stars in attendance, we just can't stop. We accommodated you last night." "You were filming last night?" Griffin asked. "We planned to after the restaurant closed, but we had to shut down production in light of the incident," Dunbar explained. "Did you record anything at the time of the attack that might give us a glimpse of the intruder?" Robin inquired. "No, we were in the banquet room, where we filmed the judges' and contestants' confessionals," Dunbar stated. My wife and I are fans of the show, and we've seen Chef Rue get into some pretty heated arguments with contestants, like Yasmin Lambert, Griffin said. Has he had any arguments like that, setting one against him? The producer grinned and shook his head, claiming, "Don't share this with anybody, but a lot of this conflict is for entertainment value. Even the contestants realize that and don't take it very seriously. He actually has a good rapport with most of them." Fake insults can still be hurtful, Griffin pointed out, and he really seemed upset when Yasmin's tart scored higher than his. Was that a put-on? Dunbar squirmed around a bit before answering. "I'd say it was exaggerated. Sure, the man has an ego, especially about his hallmark dish, but it didn't do lasting harm to their relationship. In fact, he admired her so much that he wanted her to be a reoccurring judge this season. She's inside now if you'd like to speak with her." "That would be great," Griffin agreed. "Was she here yesterday by chance?" Robin questioned. "Oh, yeah, she was in and out throughout the afternoon," the producer replied. Griffin and Robin shared a suspicious glance, but the producer didn't seem to pick up on the possible implication. He led them into the building through a narrow hallway. The door to Rue's office was indeed shut with police tape across it. They passed through the dining room, making Griffin's mouth water, before they approached a group of people in the corner near the banquet room. Griffin didn't recognize the current contestants, but spotted Yasmin among them. To his embarrassment, starstruck butterflies floated through his stomach. Dunbar introduced them as detectives and told his cast and crew to cooperate with them however they could. Still, he emphasized the need to stay on schedule. Getting the message, Griffin didn't delay in closing in on Yasmin. After asking her to join them at a private table, Griffin began. "My wife would be beside herself if she knew I was meeting with you right now. We enjoyed your season and wish we could have tasted your dishes, particularly the apple tart." She smiled, expressing, "Well, I appreciate that. I hope to open my own restaurant someday, and I'd love for you to come." "We'll be first in line," he said. "You and Chef Rue had quite an intense relationship on air, but Miles admitted that that was only for the camera. How do you two get along?" "Oh, very well," Yasmin confirmed. "We have mutual respect for each other's talent, and I consider him a close friend." "Have your fellow castmates held any criticisms against him, as far as you know?" Robin asked. "Nobody's manifested hard feelings," she related. "We all know what we're getting into. There's no script, yet there is a script, if you follow me." "Were you around at the time of the assault?" Griffin questioned. "No, I had just left for a nail appointment. I heard about it from Miles," she told them. "Did you notice anything unusual while you were here?" Griffin questioned. She considered for a moment, and nodding shared, "One of the dishwashers, Jasper, was in Pascal's office when he wasn't there. When I spotted him, he seemed to be taking pictures on his phone. He scrammed as soon as I questioned him. I thought it was odd." "Is he around today?" Griffin replied. "No, he won't be here till the restaurant opens," she related. "If you and Rue are close, can you tell us who else may have had a vendetta against him?" Robin asked. She feigned a chuckle, offering, "Oh yeah, his ex-wife. She'd surely love to sock him one and swipe the recipe in one fell swoop." A simmering feud.
I feel like I'm playing much more dramatic music than this story needs.
It's pretty dramatic. I mean, it's pretty.
Agree.
I like it.
It's very. I like it too. But I was like, they're stealing a recipe. Dun dun dun. You know, that's how it feels a little bit.
So is it like an irony?
Maybe
We
that's
have
how
like
I'll sell
a
it.
cozy styled story against a dramatic piano piece.
Right. Especially with this dance piano, it's so deep.
With a lot of attack.
Oh yeah, with a lot of attack. All right, I definitely know who did it, but I don't think I know who did it.
We're getting there.
If you know what I mean. I know who did it, but I don't know who did it.
A few more chapters to the deliberation.
Yep. All right, here we go.
a simmering feud. Back in the truck, Griffin and Robin decided their next stop would be Crier de Rêves, Joël Roux's restaurant. With Robin dropping his police badge on the dashboard, Griffin picked it up and was surprised that it read Parker, Robin's last name. "How did you get one that looks so real?" he asked. "Oh, it was Minka's before she married Wes," Robin informed. Even she used it a couple times during her hiatus from the force. Griffin shook his head over the siblings' craftiness, not daring to question how Robin secured it in his possession. Instead, he resolved to ignore the bounty hunter's methods in hopes of maintaining plausible deniability. He focused on the receipt Yasmin handed him to prove her alibi of being at the nail salon. He snapped a picture of it so she'd have the original copy for Remington and Stevens if they asked. The timestamp showed when she paid, which occurred over an hour after the attack, but she maintained that her manicure was well underway when she first was alerted of the incident. "Does a manicure really take that long?" Griffin wondered aloud. "I don't know." "You're the one married," Robin replied. Janine had never been the type to pamper herself, so Griffin didn't have a point of reference. Shelving the matter for now, Griffin centered on Joelle's potential motives. He still couldn't reconcile what she would have gained from pulling such a stunt. Even if she lied about it being a family recipe, she had to have known how to make the tart by memory, having been part owner for 13 years. Besides, Rouge surely didn't need a physical copy either. Stealing it just seemed to be a useless risk to her reputation, especially when their bitter estrangement was so public. As they neared their destination, Griffin had Google translate As they neared their destination, Griffin had Google translate the similar restaurant names. He learned that Crier de Souvenirs was French for create memories, where Crier de Rêves meant create dreams. He deduced Joëlle chose hers to indicate that she was looking forward, not back, though the familiar moniker and font could make one argue otherwise. The similarities ended there, however, at least on the surface. Where Pascal had a fancy standalone building, his ex operated in a rundown strip mall. It wouldn't be a reach to assume she had some brewing animosity. 5 customers filled 2 tables, a sparse crowd considering the approaching lunchtime. Still, Griffin figured that people might eat later in this neighborhood. The slim pickings made it hard for them to go inside and ask for information, especially information that wouldn't be pleasant to address and not give them any business. Thus, Robin and Griffin agreed to dine at the establishment in hopes of promoting good relations. To maintain good relations at home, Griffin also chose to buy Janine a meal to go. A waitress seated them in a booth, where Griffin found an abandoned black hat lying. He handed it to the girl, who thanked him, saying, "The lady who left this yesterday just called, so she'll be relieved. Anyway, will this be on one bill?" "Yes," Robin said all too quickly. Surmising the younger man expected him to pay the check, Griffin almost refused then and there. Hesitating, he opted to have some fun with it once the server left, telling Robin, "Thank you for buying." "Oh, wait, you said we shouldn't question her, so I thought," Robin stammered. "Aren't you the one hoping to get an $80,000 payday out of this?" Griffin countered. Robin didn't argue the matter, but crossed his arms and wore a disgruntled expression transmitted his reluctance. Not allowing it to bother him, Griffin enjoyed his beef Wellington, keeping an eye out for Joëlle. Unsuccessful, he consulted the dessert menu for personal and professional reasons. He noted that it featured a picture of a Duquette fruit tart in the centerfold, along with a description of the dish that explained it to be named after the owner's family. Despite its prominent advertisement, a sticker proclaimed it to be gone for now. Anybody could figure out this was the treat at the heart of the Rouge dissension. Using his tourist status to his advantage, Griffin obviously asked the waitress, "Are you still all out of this fruit tart?" "We aren't serving it at this time, but our fruit salad is available," she replied. "Are you having trouble with the supplier or something?" Griffin inquired. Her face contorted and said, "I don't believe so, but I'm not clear on the specifics." He declined the alternative but commended the food, adding, "If the owner is here, I would love to express my compliments." The waitress appeared relieved, scurrying away to get her boss. A minute later, Joelle strolled over with a smile and remarked, "I hear you enjoy your lunch. I'm very happy we satisfied you." "You certainly did," Griffin replied. "The only thing that would have made it better is if your fruit tart had been available." Her grin didn't falter, and she assured, "Well, hopefully it will be on your next visit. I expect we'll have it back soon." "Unfortunately, I'm headed north in a week or so, but my wife and I will put you on our itinerary for next time," he said. Then he tested his acting prowess, pretending to suddenly recognize her. Continuing on, he said, You look familiar. Have I seen you on television?" At that, her bright countenance dimmed, but she admitted, "Maybe, if you watch The Final Crust. I used to work at that place where they film it." "That's right." Robin entered the act, going on, "Weren't you a part owner?" Sensing her earnestness to step away, Griffin exclaimed, "Oh yeah! Check you out. Did I hear right that you're the true mastermind behind his apple tart?" "Didn't somebody just steal the recipe?" Robin probed too intently for Griffin's taste. Joelle didn't dash off as he predicted, but responded, "Yes, but I can't understand why. After all, he's about to divulge it in his cookbook." Her clipped tone revealed her resentment, so Griffin offered one more question. "Do you get any credit for it, monetary or otherwise?" "I'm sorry, but I don't discuss such personal affairs with customers," she stated, before wishing them a good afternoon. While she was still in earshot, one of her kitchen employees informed her, "Ma'am, we can't find the second meat tenderizer." Griffin and Robin eyed each other, given it was the weapon used on Rue. The Crock Book. As Robin drove him back to his condo, Griffin did research on his phone to determine if any reports about Rue's assault mentioned the weapon being recovered. To his disappointment, none of them even listed the instrument used. Knowing he would be better off not asking Remington and Stevens, he accepted it as a dead end, but couldn't ignore the irony of Joelle's missing tenderizer. Griffin decided to do some digging on Rue's cookbook. He agreed with Joelle's point about the foolishness of stealing a recipe right before it was released to the world. At the same time, he wondered if her comment was a window into her animosity over his publishing deal. Could she be the reason he was having second thoughts about sharing it with readers? Or could her spite have led her to violence? Aside from the article he read last night, the alleged controversy wasn't widely publicized. Nonetheless, he came across several release dates advertised throughout the year, with the original one being 8 months ago. Currently, it was slated for the spring with no specific date. The continual delays suggested a jockeying of some sort. "But how do we interview the publisher when they're in New York?" Robin asked as Griffin summarized his findings. Griffin mulled it over before he looked up the company's phone number and called it. Having read the name of Rue's editor, he asked the receptionist to speak with Wallace Eddington. Surprisingly, the woman transferred him with little pushback. "Are you crazy?" Robin proclaimed. "My niece is an author, so I know how to handle these folks," Griffin boasted. After 2 rings, the editor spoke. "Eddington here." "Hi, Mr. Eddington," Griffin greeted. "I'm a producer for WFTV, and we'd like to have your author, Chef Rue, on our morning show to promote his cookbook when it comes out. We're especially interested in his apple tart recipe." "Aren't we all?" Eddington muttered, his sarcasm apparent. "I'm not in charge of Pascal's press appearance. You'll need to contact his publicity agent." The turn threw Griffin off for a beat, but he recovered, retorting, "I already did, sir, but they referred me to you since they weren't sure the time frame on the release. They mentioned that it keeps changing." This time, Eddington hesitated, but eventually admitted, "Well, that's true, but we're getting matters ironed out. I'll update the publicist once we set the date, and she'll get in touch with you. My wife and I enjoy your network, and we will definitely tune in." "You're in the Orlando area?" Griffin asked. "Yes, I work remotely," Eddington stated. "We call ourselves snowbirds, but nowadays we only spend July and August up north." Now with the confirmation that he was nearby, Griffin zeroed in further, remarking, "It must have made it easier to collaborate with the chef." "We met in person once, but our correspondence otherwise has been virtual, like with the rest of my authors," Eddington countered. Griffin capitalized on the opportunity to be forthright, commenting, "I've heard rumors about whether or not you're going to include the apple tart recipe in your cookbook. Can you give me the real story?" Eddington let out an uncomfortable chuckle, telling him, "Chef Rue is protective of it and has had occasional reservations. At this point, though, I'm optimistic about it being featured." "Does the recent theft impact the decision at all?" Griffin asked. "Well, I haven't discussed it with him, but I think so. Right now, everybody is talking about it, so what better time to ride the wave of intrigue?" Eddington reasoned. Griffin thanked him for his input, contemplating if Eddington had just exposed another motivation: publicity. Clean but sticky fingers. When Griffin entered the condo, he found Janine working the case from a different angle, watching reruns of The Final Crust. He handed her the meal he brought for her from Courrier de Rêves, delighting her to have the ideal complement for her viewing pleasure. During the cooking scenes, he updated her on their discoveries that morning. He hesitated to fess up about Rue and Yasmin's feud being staged, mostly for fear of ruining the show for her. Taking him aback, she addressed it herself. She paused a frame where Rue was giving Yasmin direction, and she said, "I never spotted it before, but he keeps putting his hand on her lower back. And even though he's insulting her, they both have this twinkle in their eyes when they're talking. I wonder if their friction evolved into some other feelings." Considering his wife was always on the lookout for a love connection, Griffin normally would have tuned out the observation. After meeting Yasmin, however, he was persuaded to agree with the possibility. The women seemed to care about Rue, and when she mentioned the ex-wife, she all but spat her words as if she was jealous. Even so, one would guess she'd be at Rue's side at the hospital if they were a couple. He contemplated what celebrities did for ratings and reflected on Eddington's remark about the theft boosting book sales. If Rue was willing to put on such an act for cameras in the name of viewership, would he go to similar lengths for his much-anticipated book launch? If Janine was any indication, it'd drive up streaming interest too, and the lawsuits might just go away in the process. With the program making him hungry, he tried unsuccessfully to get her to share her lunch, then began to tinker with his phone. Since he'd been Googling Rue's cookbook and tart recipe, his search page displayed all kinds of similar dishes, along with more articles about Rue. He scrolled through, but his finger halted when he landed on an eBay listing that purported to be Rue's famous recipe. "Is this for real?" he cried out, showing it to Janine. "If so, Rue should up his reward," she said. "This lunatic is starting the bidding at $250,000. Griffin scoured the listings, unable to fathom the seller's audacity. The picture showed a manila envelope with top secret stamp on it and openly claimed to have come from the chef's desk. With no bids yet, Griffin hoped nobody would be stupid enough to buy such an item with no way to verify its authenticity. Rue certainly wouldn't give it a seal of approval. Once Griffin absorbed the insane twist, he recalled Rue's lawyer holding a similar envelope when he accompanied Rue into the ambulance. He wondered if he put on the hood and transformed into the attacker while pretending to make a call. Trying not to get ahead of himself, he swiped down to the seller's username and couldn't believe the boldness. The store was called Jasper's Gems, and if his memory served, the dishwasher Yasmin observed in Rue's office was named Jasper. When he texted Robin, his partner for the day confirmed his recollection, and they agreed to set off for Courrier de Souvenirs again to try tracking down the dishwasher. Griffin drove for the afternoon to split the gas costs, but Robin didn't show proper appreciation, complaining nonstop about the slow pace. "Dude, pick it up already," Robin demanded. "Rue will retire before we make it." Because of the mess he had to sit in all morning, Griffin slowed down even more to exact revenge. When they finally arrived, the filming crew was packing up for the day, but they had still to talk their way into getting inside. Thankfully, Yasmin met up with them as she walked to the parking lot, sporting a sun hat. After she greeted them, Griffin explained why they'd returned. "We'd like to speak with the dishwasher you mentioned. Could we have his information?" She agreed to have the manager send them his listing in the employee directory and added, "It occurred to me a while ago that he's been known to sneak things that are visible on the show to sell them on eBay. It would take a lot of nerve to do such a thing in this case, but you never know." Griffin and Robin remained quiet, but they shared an unspoken resolve to get in touch with Jasper. Griffin didn't dally to cross town to the guy's apartment, where they found him unloading a new television from his car, probably counting his chicks before they hatched. "Can we help you with that?" Griffin offered. "Sure, if you could just open my screen door," Jasper replied. While Griffin accommodated him, Robin held onto the flat screen to provide extra support. Jasper allowed them inside, accepting assistance until the set was secured on his wall. Robin chatted with him about the features of the new purchase, sharing Jasper's enthusiasm. From what Griffin knew about electronics, couldn't picture a dishwasher being able to afford a deluxe model. Jasper thanked him before asking, "Are you new to the neighborhood?" "We are," Robin lied. "We could use some extra cash from the move and all, and someone in the laundry room told me you were pretty successful with eBay sales. I'm wondering if you could give me some tips." "It clearly pays off," Griffin stated, pointing to the television. "This is from my tax refund, but yeah, it's a nice side hustle," Jasper admitted. "I'll say, especially finds like this," Griffin said, displaying the recipe on his phone. His mouth agape, Jasper declared, "I never posted that." "This is your store, isn't it?" Robin challenged. "Yes, but I don't have that. You have to believe me," he claimed. "You want to rip someone off for something that isn't even in your possession?" Griffin accused. "Of course not. I'm not a scammer," Jasper argued. After pausing, he proclaimed, "It was that customer in the black hat who borrowed my phone yesterday. I've been framed." All right, Jack, we have reached the deliberation.
He was framed. He was framed. I believe that. It's too easy. It's too easy if he wasn't framed.
All right, so Griffin and his newest partner, Robin, have their heads spinning about the stolen tart recipe.
That they do.
We can give them a helping hand in exchange for a slice of pie.
In theory.
Here are the players in the order that we met them.
Yeah.
Okay, Pascal Roux, celebrity chef and victim of the theft.
He did it.
Edward McAvoy, Roux' attorney.
I don't think he did it.
Joelle Roux, the ex-wife.
Probably didn't do it.
Yasmin Lambert, former contestant and current cast member.
I think she did it.
Jasper Albright, Roux' dishwasher.
Definitely didn't do it.
And Wallace Eddington, ticked off publisher.
I don't even remember that guy.
Well, here are the facts and clues that Griffin, not the actual detectives, have uncovered.
Alrighty.
Celebrity chef Pascal Roux recounted stepping into his office during a break-in and meeting with his attorney. While working at his desk, he was struck with a meat tenderizer and the recipe for his famed apple tart stolen from his open desk drawer.
Aha.
Rue ran out the back of the restaurant, directing staff to run after a man with the hood up. He later changed the description to a hat, and no such person was found.
And then he changed it again to a ski mask.
He did. Lawyer Edwin McAvoy confirmed that he stepped out of the meeting with Rue. He climbed into the ambulance with Rue carrying a manila envelope.
Ah, my favorite flavor.
Rue was legally embattled with his ex-wife, Joelle, over the recipe, which she claimed was her family's.
Uh-huh.
Rue was also legally fighting with his publisher, Wallace Eddington, after he decided to pull the recipe from the cookbook. Eddington, it turns out, lives in Orlando.
That he does.
Joelle claimed there wasn't a point to stealing the recipe as Rue was planning to publish it. At her new and much smaller restaurant, a meat tenderizer was reported missing.
Yeah, there's a lot of framing happening in this story.
There was no indication that Joelle was at Rue's restaurant at the time of the attack.
All right.
Yasmin Lambert was added to the reality show cast after her own apple tart was selected by the judges as superior to Rue's.
Interesting.
It was acknowledged by several that the animosity shown on screen was for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Griffin's wife noticed there was more affection than aggression in the body language between the two.
Yeah. Well, we already know that.
Jasper Albert was seen in Rue's office taking photos. It is also known that he takes things from the restaurant included on the show and sells them on eBay.
Well, and who wouldn't? He's a poor dishwasher. I don't blame him. I was a dishwasher once. I didn't steal, but I understand the sentiment.
The stolen recipe is listed on his account with the starting price of $250,000.
Crazy high for that.
Yep. Jasper claims not to have done it and blames a woman in a black hat who borrowed his phone.
Not even the actual owner of the recipe values the recipe that highly. He values it at $80,000.
Yep. A woman in a black hat was seen outside the restaurant when the theft occurred, is pointed to by Jasper as hacking his account, and was noted to be in Joelle's restaurant, leaving her hat behind.
Yeah, that was Yasmin.
Rue, McAvoy, and Yasmin and Jasper were all at the restaurant the day of the theft. Yasmin reported leaving sometime before and offered a manicure receipt with a timestamp of 1 hour after the theft as her proof.
Yeah, Yasmin did it.
So who should Griffin and Robin look to for tarting up this case?
Little Miss Yazzie, and I think she did it in cooperation with Rue, because he, can't keep any of the details straight because there weren't real details. They made them up. The black hat is clearly proof that, they got the meat tenderizer from that place. But leaving the hat behind, which, by the way, she called and asked if she left the hat. Who would do that? I'm so sorry, but if I've just stolen something and framed something and then left something behind at a restaurant, I would kind of just leave it there. I wouldn't call and be like, whoops, that was mine.
You mean you can't understand somebody like freaking out about it, like, oh my God, like that's the smoking gun, I gotta get it back.
But I think going there, showing your face, saying this is my hat is so much worse.
I guess you're right, but I could see somebody just playing the sort of innocent customer, like, oh my God, I left my favorite hat there.
Yeah, but in cooperation with the fact that you stole the meat tenderizer there, like, you did a lot in that place. You did a lot. It's not like you stopped there for lunch.
Well, Ed, she's apparently got a semi-famous face if you watch The Final Crust.
Yeah. Well, also, I feel like some of the people in that restaurant would have recognized her.
Well, you would think the ex-wife would if she would have come out, but...
I'm assuming she didn't, but, I'm also assuming some of, the employees there must have watched it.
Yeah, maybe.
Think about it. Your boss was on a famous TV show. You probably want to watch that show.
I don't know. Do you think that you're kind of expecting to see people that you see on TV just in ordinary places like your restaurant? Like, would you queue in?
I have no idea. Possibly. I mean...
I'm not one who stalks celebrities, so somebody could be standing next to me and I probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah. No, I don't know. But no, I think Yasmin did it. They're doing it. I don't remember. I had an idea earlier why they did it, but I think some other clue disproved my theory. Um, and I'm sure if I thought about it for more than 30 seconds, I could figure it out. But
So you're strong on who, but
I,
not why.
yeah, it's either the I can't remember. This is actually really frustrating. I think Rue decided he didn't want to put it in the whatchamacallit. He didn't want to
Cookbook.
put it in the story, but the publisher was pressuring him to do it. So then originally I thought, oh, he had it stolen so that he couldn't put it in there. But then now they're saying they'll put it in there anyway. So he clearly has it memorized and knows it. Which at that point, in my opinion, why write it down? That just leaves problems.
I did think that for a recipe that you've been making for 13 years, you don't really need the recipe.
Right, especially if it's just going to lead to issues like these. But of course, at the same time, you're not expecting issues to arise. You're not expecting people to commit crimes. You don't do that naturally. You aren't naturally like, well, if I write this down, a crime will be committed. Granted, he's the one who committed the crime, so then really, who knows? Like, what's the point of anything? But no, it's definitely those two. Eddington, uh, he has light motivation. I but no. And then the other ones, again, they have light motivation, but not enough to really want to do anything. And two of them are just good fallbacks for pointing the finger at him. So yeah, Yasmin and Rue.
All right. I hope everybody out in podcast land has locked in your suspects too. Before we get to the big reveal, I want to remind you that Mysteries to Die For is still ad free. And in exchange for not making you hit the fast forward button, we ask that you support our authors. Karina's Undefeated mystery series, it's a real treat. It's a cozy style mystery. Minka is a fascinating character. She is deaf. She uses an ocular implant. I think if I had an ocular implant, I would just turn it off when things got too crazy. But Minka doesn't do that. She continues to charge forward to solve the mysteries. Excellent character, really family fun with Minka's family. So check out Karina Bartaw and check out Minka Avery. Yeah, it's a good mystery series. All right, The Boiling Point. With the day's events rolling around in his mind, Griffin surprised Robin and Jasper when he suggested the three of them take an excursion. He just hoped his hunch was correct and that he wasn't giving a lift and an alibi to an actual thief. He could never get away with this on the force. Entering the hospital, he asked the receptionist Rue's room number. Despite his concerns, there were no security measures in place that prevented them from releasing the detail, allowing visitors to walk right up. Once they arrived, the security guard posted at the door explained the lax precautions. Griffin and Robin approached the guards and stated their names and that they'd been investigating the attack. The open door permitted them a glance inside where Yasmin was holding Rue's hand while he lay in bed. Griffin silently commended Janine for her insight and used Yasmin's presence to their advantage. "Miss Lambert," Griffin called out, "could you help us out here?" Though wearing her astonishment, she gave them the go-ahead and the trio stepped inside. She let go of Rue's hand but murmured in his ear to convey their identities, and Rue offered Griffin a weak smile. "Hello, officer. Forgive me for not remembering your name and rank," Rue said. "I am very thankful this happened with such a capable investigator right there." Griffin snickered inwardly, wondering if he'd feel that way in a few minutes. He replied, "So am I, Chef Rue. I've narrowed down a suspect, and I'm hoping you can tell me if anything about him rings a bell." Rue nodded, but squirmed when Jasper stepped out from behind the privacy curtain, questioning, "Why would you bring him here?" "We believe he can identify your attacker," Robin announced. "He lent his phone to a customer who tampered with his eBay account and listed your recipe for sale." "What a pitiful excuse," Yasmin protested. "He brags about what he sells from the set." "When have I ever bragged to you?" Jasper asked. "We've never spoken, which is why I didn't know who you were when you acted like a customer and wanted to use my phone." Are you implying that Yasmin attacked me? Rue asked, gasping. No, Griffin stated. I'm implying you attacked yourself. I've been wondering why you would put such a high reward on this recipe when you're supposed to sell it in a book for $30. After all, your legal fees for defending it from your ex as well as your publisher have to be going through the roof. But, Robin explained, if the recipe disappeared in a bizarre publicity stunt, you would be free from it all. Sure, you still remembered it, but the attention you would get would net you sympathy from the public, making both your opponents look bad for pursuing their lawsuits. The publisher might even up your advance to make it more worthwhile to reveal the recipe. Rue closed his eyes, countering, I need my rest. This isn't worth my weary attention. Yes, please leave if all you have is this nonsense to show for your so-called investigation, Yasmin commanded. Beside her sat the black sun hat Griffin had seen twice before, on her head outside of Rue's restaurant and inside his ex-wife's. He pointed to it and asked Jasper, Did you say the customer who borrowed your phone wore a black hat? Jasper grinned, affirming, That looks familiar. Does to me too, Griffin agreed. I found it at Career de Revs. Guess you forgot it because you were too busy stealing their meat tenderizer to implicate Joelle. Yasmin stood and hollered at the guards. Guys, please escort these fools out. They're not even professionals. The real detectives came by the restaurant after them. As security followed orders, Griffin remained in place and said, You're right. I'm sure they could get a warrant, both to access surveillance at Career de Revs and to figure out what was inside the envelope Edwin McAvoy held when he jumped into the ambulance. Rue's eyes sprang open just in time for Yasmin to fess up. I'm not going to jail for you and your massive ego. This was a ridiculous scheme from the start. With that, she extracted the envelope and the meat tenderizer from her purse. Robin snatched the envelope from her hand and dangled it.
She just carries these things around with her? Someone's like, I have all the evidence for the crime in my handbag.
It's a short story.
My
It needed
gosh.
to wrap up.
You're right.
Robin snatched the envelope from her hand and dangled it in front of Rue, mocking, Where's my 80 grand? The end.
My bad, I should have waited to rant. I didn't realize you had one last sentence.
Yeah. But, it's a short story, so you get to the end and you get to the end.
That's true.
That was awesome timing. I told you this was live.
My bad. I should have turned around and looked. No, that was good. I knew from this, not from the start, but from pretty quickly on when he started misremembering that it had to be him, because, that's just what you do. You forget details, and when you forget details, it's because you made them up.
Yeah, it was really interesting that, Griffin and Janine, who did you like the way I kept smashing together Janine and Yasmin's names?
I was getting confused myself.
I didn't realize they don't look similar on the written page.
Well,
but
Yasmin
they sound
you expect
similar.
to be Jasmine, so then there's the two J's that don't actually exist. Only one of them is really there.
And I just put the two words together.
Yeah.
Sorry, Karina.
I do love that she's carrying around all of this incriminating evidence.
I thought it was telling, sort of in retrospect, that when Griffin and Janine pull up to the restaurant, the door's closed, and then Rue stumbles out.
Yeah.
So they would have been in the right place to see somebody run out, or the door would have been closed.
And that's what I kept thinking. I was like, no one really left, did they?
No one left.
And part of me was like, well, I kind of want them to get the security footage, but they can't because that would solve the mystery. And the funny part is that as much as Griffin is mad at these guys for using the security footage as like, whoops, it's just the easy way out, it would have given them the answer. It
would have at least said that. I suspect that Rue would have thought of that, and something would have been wrong, like the camera wasn't pointing in the right direction, or there was a glitch. I figured
there was no, like, he destroyed something or he erased something. I figured that was going to come out, but we just never saw that. But no, I was like, nah, definitely, actually, at this point, we would find out that the security footage would totally prove the guy's right.
I don't know where, I guess, I've never paid attention inside of a restaurant, and especially a fancy restaurant, to know, like, where the cameras would point. Would they point to the dining room? Would they be watching the customers?
Well, I have no idea how it's laid out. It'd probably be in like the main kitchen, and then in the back is the dishwasher and like the door out. That's how Bob Evans worked, at least. Which I'm not saying Bob Evans is anywhere near like these fancy restaurants, but like there would be no need for a camera in the back. You don't need to film the dishwasher.
Well, I could see there being a camera on the back of the building looking at the back door.
Oh, like a security camera?
Yes,
Oh, yeah. I
possibly.
don't know. We'd have to ask someone with more experience than us. We'd have to ask the guy from Gracie's Goodies who was setting up and stealing people's security camera stuff.
Yeah.
Which, spoilers alert, if you haven't seen our previous episode. My bad. I didn't mean to just spoil that entire episode.
Well,
Whoops.
hopefully people listen in order.
If you don't listen in order, my bad. You know who did it now.
And if you listen in order, you know exactly what he's talking
Yeah.
about.
Whoops.
So you want to learn a thing or two about recipe theft?
I would love to. I do love the SpongeBob reference.
Yeah. So
Most famous instance of recipe theft.
there are two things about recipes that make them ripe for theft. You like my pun?
Brilliant.
One is pride and the other is money. Come to think of it, those are the two big motives in a normal Mysteries to Die For season. There is a hot dispute going on right now. Now I'm going to butcher some of these names, so my apologies. Naji Mahashi, founder of Recipe Tin Eats, has accused Brooke Bellamy of plagiarizing two recipes in her cookbook, Bake with Brookie. There are lots of blogs and websites diving into the did she or didn't she, and we'll have to see where that one goes. So yeah, it's a real thing. Google it or whatever your favorite search engine is. Then, just a few years ago, back in 2022, Grillo's Pickles of Boston filed multiple lawsuits against Patriot Pickle of Florida for breach of agreement and using Grillo's recipes to create a nearly identical product for Whole Foods. The Grillos accused Patriot of false advertising over the use of fresh, all-natural, and no preservatives because they use a preservative sodium benzoate. Also alleged were trade secret thefts. The Florida court transferred the case to the District of New Jersey, and that case appears to be ongoing. So, according to Shelley Wilson of Craft Gossip, copyright rules aren't straightforward when it comes to recipes. Copyrights do not protect ideas, procedures, or methods. A list of ingredients, for example, is not protected. Copyrights do apply to entire cookbooks as a collection of written work, description and introductions and stories, and then the photo elements. So plagiarism, which is the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own, could happen without technically violating copyright. I thought that was really interesting. Sort of a very fine line to walk there between, what is a creative work and then copyright. Let's tell you a little bit more about our author this week. So Karina Bartaw hails from Northern Ohio. Though born with cerebral palsy, she's never allowed her disability to define her. Rather, she's used her experiences to breathe life into characters who have physical limitations, but, like her, are determined not to let them stand in the way of the life they want. Her works include 4 installments of the Undefeated Detective series, as well as Forgetting My Way Back to You and Wrong Line, Right Connection. She may only be able to type with one hand, but she writes with her whole heart. Check her out on her website. The link is in the show notes. So that wraps up this episode of Mysteries to Die For. Support our show by subscribing, telling a mystery lover about us, and giving us a 5-star review. Check out our website, m2d4podcast.com, for links to this author's season. This is episode 14, and coming out in early October is the anthology for the second half of the year, right in time to put on your Christmas list, Hanukkah list, and favorite books to read list. Mysteries to Die For is hosted by TG Wolff and Jack Wolff. The Bounty Hunger was written by Karina Bartaw. Music and production are by Jack Wolff. Episode art is by TG Wolff. Join us next week for a toe tag, which you all know is a fresh release, a first chapter from a fresh release in the mystery, crime, or thriller genre. And then come back in 2 weeks for our next original story. I have a typo in my script. Then come back in 2 weeks for our next original story. It's The Joker is Wild by Deborah H. Goldstein. All right, Jack, take us out.